All right. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started with our session. My name is Beth Feldkamp. I am the Assistant Director of Student Services, and I think I have talked to a lot of you in the past, so excited to see you all here this evening and happy to help support you through anything that I can. I will be directing the session a little bit tonight, but working on moderating any questions that you ask through the chat or the question and answer section. So please feel free to ask at any time during the presentation. We'll all be working on that to answer your questions by who's best suited to respond. So we definitely would encourage that. Probably many folks have the same question as you, but if you would like, you could also direct it as a private question and we'll be happy to respond that way. I do want to remind everybody that this session is going to be recorded and will be sent to all individuals who registered for tonight's session. This is also going to be posted in the Spring Summer 25 Admitted Student Toolkit. You're going to want to make sure, if you haven't already, to check through and explore that whole toolkit. There's so many great resources. You'll find dates for any other webinars that are taking place. So please look through that toolkit. So we're going to cover a few things tonight. We're really excited to have you here and give you a warm welcome, talk about registration and some really great details about the program. Then you're going to be provided some amazing information about our field placement from our field faculty team. And then I'm going to cover some reminders, some resources, and then we'll give time at the end if you have any other questions that we could answer for you. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to pass this on over to our online program manager for our Masters of Social Work program here at the University of Michigan.
Thanks,
Antoine?
Beth. Thanks, Beth. Oh, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world here. I just want to say hello again. Many of you have, and I have had an opportunity to interact with our course planning registration session. So today we're just going to kind of recap some things that you may have questions about, but we're really looking forward to getting to know you and work with you while you're in the program. All right. So just to provide a general overview for the online MSW program, as you know, we have a part-time and full-time opportunity for students. The program can be completed in a total of 45 credits. Full-time students typically take about 15 credits on average. It's kind of a stair step right now, 14, 15, or 16 credits over 3 semesters. I will say that the program is very intense, and so at times I do have students who reach out to ask about completing the full-time program over 4 terms instead of 3. So if that's something that might appeal to you or it works better for your life, we should definitely have a conversation pretty early, I would say within the first term for sure. For students in our part-time program, typically they are enrolled for 7 semesters, usually 8 credits or less. Right about now, it's usually 6 or 7, and then the very last term is typically 5 credits. I also want to share as a caveat for you all as well. I know some of you think about it. How can I graduate sooner with part-time status? At the fewest amount of terms, a student can complete the program on a part-time basis. It's about 6 terms. So again, if that's something that is you're thinking about, let's have that conversation, preferably within your first term, so that we can make some, of course, some adjustments to your course plan as needed. So entry into the program happens in a number of different ways. So we have some students who are admitted by way of advanced standing. These are folks who have completed their bachelor's in social work. The vast majority of our students are admitted by way of the master track. So these are students who have completed, of course, the program that has been on Coursera soon will be within the social work essentials certificate. And so that master track, what it does is it essentially covers about 15 credits. So you save quite a bit if you're admitted by way of the master track. And then we also have the pathway for students who are coming in from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, completing the sociology subplan, and then also the University of Michigan Dearborn Health and Human Services curriculum. Within the online MSW program, we have two pathways right now: the interpersonal practice and integrated health, mental health, and substance abuse. We call that IP for short, and then the welfare of children and families, the WCF pathway. So those are your options for the program. As I've shared, you can only select one pathway while you're in the online program. So you have options to, of course, take a lot of different coursework, and you can spend your electives however you want, but you can only select one pathway while you are in the program. Class registration, again, a recap, we've went over most of this. So if you're looking for your enrollment appointment, most of you should be registering on April 11th, I believe starting at 2:30 p.m. But if you want to confirm, you can look within Wolverine Access. I would definitely say check that beforehand. So if you're seeing a different date outside of April 11th, please let me know so that we can make sure that we get that corrected. But you can find your enrollment appointment in your student center on the right-hand side of your screen, just from this visual here. So this is essentially what your student center page will look like when you land there. And on the right-hand side, there's a box titled Enrollment Dates, and below that is the enrollment appointment. If you click the details button, it will take you into a little bit more detailed information to give you specific days and times in which you'll be able to register for your courses. As I've shared with you previously, you want to make sure that you have your course planning worksheet. Please bookmark that page or print it just so that you can keep sort of a running tab of what you need to do while you're in the program. It becomes very helpful and useful so you can check things off and then make notes about electives that you're thinking about so that you remain on track for your time in the program. Also, you want to make sure that you're using the School of Social Work course catalog. I always advise students to start there because our catalog is a little bit cleaner and easier to navigate sometimes than what's in Wolverine Access. And so you can take the class number in the School of Social Work catalog, plug it into Wolverine Access when you're on the registration page in your backpack, and it will make things go a lot smoother and easier for you. All right, determining electives. And so I did share for those who were present, and hopefully if you haven't, you will get a chance to review the recording. But essentially, an elective is simply anything that is not listed as a required course, meaning it's not a pathway or an essentials course on your course planning worksheet. So the pathway course list that we have, as I shared, covers courses across the entire School of Social Work. So many of them, a good number of them are not offered necessarily in the online program. Of course, they are accessible to you if you live in Southeast Michigan. But the issue is simply this, just making sure that you know when to use them. You can have pretty much take whatever you want. So if it's not necessarily listed as an elective on your pathway course list, for those of you who are IP or welfare of children, we always get this question. It literally is any course. So even though it may not necessarily be designated as an elective on the pathway course list on our website, because it's offered by the School of Social Work, we still look at it as an elective. So you have a lot of different options. Some of our electives are worth 3 credits, others are worth 1 credit. So you have a lot of flexibility. Just making sure again that you know the requirements for the courses, because one, we have a lot of different options. Our 1 week courses typically are meeting 5 times a week, unless they're like very special circumstances where that course is offered over the weekend. So just make sure that you're paying attention to the schedule to, of course, pick those electives that fit your academic and personal and professional goals. All right. Okay, here we go. So what to do when classes are closed? I've talked to some of you already who've asked this question. As I've shared before, many of our classes close once we reach 15 students enrolled in a course. The remaining 5 seats are managed through the course enrollment petition process. And so please don't panic, don't worry. I'm always amazed at how lean we tend to stick to our offerings. But I can tell you from looking behind the scenes, we always have exactly what we need, and typically there are still seats available in classes. So don't panic if there isn't something that you absolutely want within this first term. You will have an opportunity to get all of what you need before you graduate for sure. But if it is something that really is appealing to you, you can complete the course enrollment petition form. making sure that you fill out the form for the appropriate class and section, and of course, also making note that you're completing one form per course. So right now we're kind of in a great registration period because this season is essentially for you all, our incoming folks. So you have access to, of course, all the online classes before our residential students. So make sure that you, of course, fill out the course petition form if it is something that appeals to you. You will receive a decision either way. If you do receive an approval, you will receive a notification from someone in the registrar's office, either Adam Chopoff, the registrar, or Mackenzie Hubbard, who works and supports the registrar. And so there is a set amount of time in the notification that will tell you when you must use that petition. So make sure that you're paying attention to the dates that are listed there so that you can register and not miss out on that petition request expiring once you receive that course permission. And so keep that in mind. Typically, they last about 48 hours, so that gives you some adequate time. But I would just say if you've submitted, make sure that you start paying attention to your email just so that you are aware of when you receive a notification. Another note that I do want to add, per some feedback that I've received, we don't want students completing those petition requests until your enrollment appointment. So wait till April 11th after you've registered to then start submitting them. And I'm telling you that because if you submit too soon, you may receive a decision with certain dates that might be ahead of your enrollment appointment, which means that you would likely, those requests would expire, so you would miss out on those. So make sure that you're submitting any petition requests starting April 11th or after. All right. As we were talking about what to expect while you're in the program, of course, you'll be in classes. Typically, students are enrolled in 1 to 4 classes a semester with some field education. The majority of our classes are 3 credits, and we do have 1 credit courses as well. But one of the things about our program is we are very much a live synchronous program. So each of our classes will meet for 2 hours. There's a lot of active learning and application and participation. The asynchronous elements are, of course, your assignments, your reading videos, watching videos, reading newspapers, articles, magazines, articles of that sort, book chapters, things of that nature. So all of those pieces happen before you go to your class. So if you're looking at the chart here at the below, you see we have a very much a flipped model. So you'll start with a lot of those online asynchronous activities, and then we'll take that information that you've worked on independently and bring that into your live meeting. So that's a flipped model. So keep that in mind as you are navigating and working through the program as a whole. In terms of technology, you're using it right now. So we have all of our courses, you'll meet live on Zoom. Our course management system is Canvas, and then we also utilize Submersion for various simulations. It's best to just make sure that you are positioning yourself for success by being in, a quiet place where you can sort of be free from distractions. Now, that said, we understand that folks, of course, have fur babies and pets and children, your caregiving and whatnot. So, we welcome those interruptions if, someone needs a hug to come sit on your lap for a little bit, or for cat, walks across the screen. We expect all of those things in this online space. So, nothing to worry about. We've seen it all. In terms of what to expect with related to time, so 45 hours of work per credit is what you should expect. So that works out to about 3 hours a week per credit. So if you have 6 class credits, you can expect about 18 hours of work on average for that particular weight of carry which would be 6 credits in that example. So just keep that in mind as you're navigating through what your course load will look like, especially for those of you who are part-time, and for those of you full-time, I would just say keep that in mind. I know many times students want to complete the program while working full-time, so be cautious and careful of that because it can add up and become a lot very fast. Additionally, you will be in field education. Some of you will start right away. Some of you will start in your 4th term. So you're looking at about 16 hours per week plus whatever class credits you have. So it's important to think about that and how that will, how you will manage things if you are working. especially if you are having to work and then also go to a separate place for field education. So keep all those pieces in mind as you're navigating, your commitments and your time. Um, in terms of this last expectation, as I said before, we are a cameras on school. There are tons of schools of social work that are running their programs asynchronous, or you never get to see anyone if you choose not to. That's not who we are at the University of Michigan. We really believe in collaborative, engaged learning. So, number one, the number one reason is engagement. It allows you to really just foster high levels of engagement and participation. One of the things that I really look forward to, especially when we get to the end of the program, when you all are getting ready to graduate, the night before we have a pre-grad celebration, and we just hear a lot of folks talk about the relationships that they built. I'll be honest, those relationships aren't built in clubs or online organizations. They're really built inside of the classroom in Zoom, because you start the relationships there, and then many of you start connecting once you figure out, how you are similar and what, things bring you together. So a lot of that engagement happens in the classroom, and having cameras on really helps to foster and bridge those gaps and help with relationships. Secondly, community and relationship building. Cameras on just encourages and allows members to really learn and collaborate and network. So you get to really have an understanding for others and really pay attention to a lot of those things that can be missed if you don't have your cameras on. Most importantly, number three, I would say focus and participation. With having your camera on, you're able to really promote some of those interpersonal communication practice skills, because you're able to work through and manage a lot of complex information. So keep your cameras on. And then, most importantly, I would say is communication. Because we're in a virtual space like this, it's hard to read a lot of the nonverbals. And so, having your cameras on will not only help your instructors, but will help your fellow classmates, especially as you're trying to, process information, nonverbal cues, body language, facial expressions that you don't necessarily have in a physical classroom. And so having the camera on will sort of help with that, especially if as you're going to tackle very challenging subjects in coursework while you are in the program. Other things to know. So as we shared, the seed orientation will be taking place on Friday, May 2nd, starting at 12 noon Eastern Time, and will run through Sunday, May 4th. So please make sure that you are available for the entire weekend. Attendance is mandatory. As I said, this is not just a orientation, but it's also your one credit first class, the introduction to social work practice. So you want to make sure that you are there for that social work 590. There is a textbook that you'll be receiving additional information on as well. That textbook you will use for this course and then also for the Capstone Social Work 699. Um, I did briefly mention the other night our communication platform, which is Slack. So we do a lot of communication. Yes, you get emails, but Slack is pretty much utilized for students in the online program. Staff and some of our faculty are starting to use it as well. So you'll receive an invitation for that sometime mid to late April. I look at Slack as sort of being that place for hall passing time. So you don't get to necessarily see people in the hallway per se, but it allows you at least to connect and start building those relationships, to ask different questions. It's very helpful. I've seen students, reach out to other students and say, "Hey, I am in the waiting room for, Professor so and so's class. Can you let them know that I'm here?" So it's useful for a number of different reasons. You can use it to create other groups. We've had students who created Slack channels for caregiving and other special needs, and other just areas of interest of life outside of the classroom. So you can use it for a number of different reasons. And we want to, of course, encourage you to make full use of that platform while you are in the program. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Robinson, who will discuss field education.
Thank you so much, Antoine. Everybody, I like to say, wait 1 second. I think I can advance my slides now. I'd like to say welcome. I'm so happy to see you all here today. Being at Michigan is a phenomenal experience. I've loved every moment of my time here, which is why I'm still here after being a student. So my name is Dr. Yanni Robinson, and I am the Assistant Director of Field Education for the online program. You will see on this slide our field director, Erin Kong, and we also have an assistant director for the residential program, Christina Dadswell. We work as a team, so you will often be able to get support from anybody in our office because we are here as a team. Although your field faculty, the one you'll be working with, everyone will be assigned to field faculty. That person will know your special circumstances the best, but we do offer coverage for one another when we're out. I also would like to introduce you to, sorry. This is a new thing we're doing here with the advancing of the slides. This is a couple of our other field team. We have our field coordinator, Talia Ingham, as well as Professor Feyi Adumbi and Mona Berry, who will be joining the call soon. So I'll pause here to allow Professor Adumbi and Talia Ingham to say hello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Feyi Adumbi. I am a field faculty here in the field office, and hopefully some of you will fall on my caseload, and I look forward to meeting all of you all. Thank you.
Hi, friends. I am Talia Ingham, as Professor Yanni introduced, and I work with a lot of the students kind of initially through the process, so it's likely that I will be meeting with a couple of you along the way, but I'm also alumni of the program and been in the office for a couple of years, so it's wonderful to be back and be with you all this evening.
Thank you so much. So today we wanted to come in and just share with you a brief overview of what you can expect with field education. There's a lot of questions and lots of moving parts with field education. So we are here to give you a brief overview. However, once you enter the program, we'll do another overview for you for all students who are starting their placing immediately. And the term that you start your field placement, we will get like a pre-field orientation as well, right before you actually start your field placement. So there are two phases. The first phase is to get you placed, and the second phase is when you actually start your placement. There's lots and lots of communication that's going to come from our office. So all that information is going to come through your UMich email, and you will need to pay very close attention to that because missing these important emails can be very costly to you because it will disrupt your placing cycle and your ability to start field on time. So please do watch your University of Michigan email. So I'm going to jump in and share a few important things about field education, starting with the purpose of field. So the purpose of field education is to provide the hands-on real-world training experience during your social work education. The goal is to integrate the knowledge and theories and skills that you'll be learning in the classroom into practice in real-world settings that you will be placed in for your field placement, where you'll be experiencing the real world of social work as a practitioner. Field is also a place where you'll learn how to practice and navigate those ethical dilemmas that you might face. And these things often arise in your field placement, but principally it arises all the time in your profession. So it's important to understand that field is that introduction to the profession. So you're not going to find that perfect placement because the world of social work isn't perfect. So you'll have ethical dilemmas, you'll have shortcomings that will come from directors and communities and under-resourced, all kinds of things. And you'll get an opportunity to experience that and to learn skills on how to manage these things when they arise. One thing is important to understand is that field is not intended to be your first career experience. What this means is that your placement may not align to the things that you want to do in your career. You may be placed in a setting that is completely opposite or different from what you want to do in your career. So that is normal. At Michigan, we do work to align students if they have a specific career we will try to see if we can find a placement that match that, but that's not our objective. Our objective is to get you placed in a setting where you can practice the social work competencies and integrate your coursework into field to meet your graduation requirements. So that is really important so that people aren't disappointed when they get in. What I have found is that, and many of my colleagues agree, that the job that you get after graduation, it is not dependent on your field placement at all. It is mostly dependent on the job market. And if you are able to gain transferable skills that can shape your ability to enter into that market and shine in very different settings, that is going to help you to land the job that you want. And I think that is really something that is important to focus on in any placement. Oftentimes, students might be confused about that and they might get panicked and a little bit stressed out about that. But this is really the importance of, and the importance of getting those transferable skills, because also your interest might change. So even if you're doing one thing in your field placement and you thought you want to do that for the rest of your life, your interests change and you will be prepared. Our goal is to prepare generalist social workers so that you can go into multiple settings and thrive and shine in those settings. Field education provides an opportunity to take those classrooms learning as well and integrate them so that the things that you're learning in class, you can practice that in the field setting. So I recommend that you take your syllabi from your courses and see if you can propose those things to your field instructor, who would ultimately be the ones to approve it. Now, another important note, it is crucial to work to preserve your field placement and address and resolve any challenges that should arise. Because disruptions can delay your graduation, but they can also result in significant financial costs. So literally, this is something that's worth working hard to preserve and not being reckless with it, like, oh, I'll just get placed somewhere else. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. And it can be very costly. It could take months to even secure a new placement, especially in the online program. So it's really important to keep that in mind. Now, here are a few settings and skills that not the settings, but the skills that you'll be learning. Our goal, again, is to focus on skill development. And one of the things I would recommend you doing in your site visits with your field faculty is to talk about the actual skills that you're learning. So when you're in your placement, think about, what am I doing right now when I'm meeting with this client, or when I'm working with this community, or when I'm writing up this report? What am I actually doing? And think about the skills you're using so that so you can talk about that in your job interviews and land your jobs to launch your career as a social worker. So we'll go into, under the knowledge area, we will go under evidence-based treatment models. We will talk about the code of ethics a lot. I'm very proud that our profession do focus a lot on the code of ethics. We would talk about centering justice and the history of social work. And then we also have skills, assessment skills on the multiple levels, like not just clinical therapy. We always are thinking about how to assess a situation and determine the best intervention, whether that's like clinical IP or in the community setting. Person-centered planning, treatment planning, empathy, active listening. These are all skills that you might gain in order to enhance your ability to effectively communicate, to engage with intellectual and cognitive abilities and skills, and also your social emotional learning. And now we are going to talk a little bit about the settings. These are the types of settings that our agencies find themselves in. Hospitals and health systems, families, service agencies, mental health offices, outpatient clinics, community mental health, higher education, substance abuse program, behavioral health centers, community support programs. This is just a sampling of the types of settings that we have placed our students in. And remember that it's not about the setting as much as it is about the transferable skills. So it's really important to keep that in mind. There's a couple other things for out-of-state students and people in the UP where we don't have a lot of partners. There is an opportunity to establish new organizations, new settings, for example, that you might be able to work in. So students do not need to necessarily find their own placements but if you do have a certain setting and you live in a region that we don't have a lot of agencies, by all means, you can propose, hey, I want to work with these kids that are, doing play therapy at this clinic. The requirement there is you would need to reach out to that agency to see that they meet the social work competencies, see if they're accepting students, and then send us their contact information. And then we will be glad to set that up for you and do an agency onboarding, do all the work to get them affiliated. You don't need to carry the information of the university or anything. We will do all of that. You will just give us the information. If you do want to do that, you will want to do that sooner than later, because once we get to a certain threshold, we are going to be looking for a generalist placement in any area, even if we need to open up a new placement for you. Now, if you do have a specific agency that you'd like for us to open up and you live in an environment where we don't have a lot of agencies, I want you to understand that schools and hospitals and government agencies take a long time. And so sometimes they're not even available because by the amount of time and energy it takes to start an affiliation, it will not fit within your time frame. For example, many of the government agencies take up to a year to start an affiliation because there's lots of back and forth with the attorneys. So it's important to understand that. And when you're doing your searching of these different agencies, to actually look for places that are more nonprofits, community clinics, or community organizations. We also have, it's very difficult to get into private practices. We do have many students placed in private practices, but those are hit or miss, where sometimes it doesn't work out well, and a student might need to call many private practices before they find one to accept them. But if this is something you really, really want, we're not telling you can't do it. By all means, go for it, give it a shot, because we have lots of students placed there, but it is this is not something that we would do in our office to solely look for a private practice to place a student. We will be searching for generalist placements. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Talia now. Thank you so much for your attention.
So with everything that Dr. Yanni is mentioning, we want to dive a little bit further into when and where field placements might be. So first and foremost, most placements will typically take place during regular business days and hours. So we do want to make you aware of that. We find placements with the evening and weekend hours are considered very rare and cannot be guaranteed. So the placers that you work with will share any available options, as we're mentioning with you when you're applying for field. However, if no weekend or evening placements are available in your area and things, we will pursue placements with traditional business hours. So please be sure that you're available during business hours and prepared for that. If you're aware of a field placement in your community that might offer evening and weekend hours, we are happy to review those options. As Dr. Robinson was mentioning, kind of making sure that they are taking students, that they would be a good fit. So students will need to explore with that agency if they're, again, accepting students, are willing to partner with our university, if they can offer regular supervision with an MSW, if they can offer placements that align with your competency development too, which is really the heart of everything in your field placement, and can provide contacts for referrals. So making sure that you have a good connection that we can reach out to and start some of that process, which we're happy to facilitate at that point. So that's going to help us identify if we can pursue that as a potential placement, or if maybe it's not going to be a good fit, right, for your program needs as well. So we've also included a little bit about field schedules. So when preparing for field, you can anticipate being in field on average for 2 to 3 days per week, across 2 to 4 terms, depending upon your specific track. Some of this may be familiar to some of our full-time Master Track students who have already begun this process, but we do want to include it here just so you're aware of what might be your schedule moving forward. Now, the particular schedule that you actually end up like every week doing with your agency will definitely depend on the organization. So we encourage students to keep that in mind and ask that when they're interviewing with agencies to make sure it's a good fit as well. Just moving us forward. Perfect. Thank you so much. So where will your field placement be? We find most of our students are typically traveling an average of 30 to 60 minutes, commuting to their field placements. Similarly to weekend and evening placements, remote settings are considered rare, with most of the most of the field placements taking place in person. So while there may be some options, they are definitely rarer, we find. For our non-local students, our team begins reaching out about 2 terms prior to your field start to start working with you to identify current partnerships or find those local options right near your home if those are necessary and there's not any in your area. Alternatively, for our local students, our office is actually going to reach out only 1 term before your field start to share next steps and start connecting with field placements that are local in your area. During this process, our team is actually going to work to identify placements that are going to meet those competencies and make sure that you have enough opportunity to engage with all 9 of the competencies of your pathway as well. So we want to make sure that they align with the social work competencies and with your pathway too. For our non-local students, we will invite you to connect for a placing orientation meeting, after which we're going to share any affiliated placements again in your area to help you prepare to submit that field application. So we will look at any of those partnerships once we start that process, because then we'll know who's available to take students and we can start referring your materials after you apply. Okay, next slide. So what will the placement process look like in and of itself? We've kind of hinted at different elements, but we can get a little bit more specific. If you're a local student living in Southeast Michigan, you're going to be invited to attend a field webinar, again, 1 term before you begin field, after which you're going to select from a list of affiliated placements in your region. So again, that's 1 term before you're going to be looking for that webinar to kind of kick off your process. If you're a non-local student, you live a little bit further away, you may be out of state, we're actually going to invite you to confirm some general information, make sure we have your location, things like that, in a brief survey that we're going to send out to you. And we'll invite you to attend a field orientation meeting those 2 terms before beginning in field. So again, that will be sent to your U of M email, so please keep an eye on that. I know we've put at least 1 plugin, but that's where that survey is going to show up. So we want to make sure we get that information as early as we can to start that process. If when meeting there are not enough options in your area of our current partnerships, we'll have the opportunity to explore some other in your community. Again, we recommend you maybe keeping this in mind, maybe thinking and reaching out to agencies, right, that you'd want to bring to the table. However, please note we do advise reviewing multiple settings and not just one specific setting. So if we do have multiple partners in your area, considering them as the different skills you could take and transfer, like Dr. Robinson was saying, post-graduation as well. All students will submit a field application, after which we're going to begin referring you to field sites in order to set up an interview. If a placement is offered and accepted following an interview, so it is a good match, we'll work with the placement to complete any additional next steps if there's anything that we need in preparation for you to begin field at that time. We also want to touch a little bit on employment-based field placements, since these can be a really good fit, but there are some considerations when you're weighing if this is something you're interested in or not. While most students are placed in more traditional field settings, some of our students are able to apply for employment-based field placements that, if approved, allow them to complete field hours at their place of employment through either an expansion of their current role or interning in an alternative or a separate department. So those are kind of the two pathways that students maybe sometimes pursue with an employment-based placement. And some of the criteria are that your job allows you to align, engage with the 9 competencies of your pathway, that an MSW supervisor is available to provide 1 hour of dedicated weekly supervision throughout your internship, that we get a submitted employment-based field placement application, which is really going to assist in mapping out the proposed placement itself. So we want to make sure we have a really clear understanding of what it is to make sure it's going to be able to support your education. Additionally, we're going to have the employer and our field director review and approve that plan, right, to make sure that everybody's on board. And then finally, we would have your employer complete all of the required partnership paperwork if, again, that initial application and plan that we've mapped out is agreed upon by both sides. So for those that are interested in considering if an employment-based placement might be a good fit, we'd also invite you to review the following suggestions, as we have had multiple unsuccessful employment-based placements and have learned a few important lessons along the way. So to reduce those like costly delays and setbacks that financially could affect your graduation date, we just want to share a little bit of what we've noted and maybe learned along the way. So we would recommend, it's in your best interest to choose an employment-based placement where you're already familiar with the employer, your supervisor, and your colleagues for at least a couple of months, versus maybe starting a new job in order to do an employment-based placement. An employment-based placement would mean that your field placement and your education experience would be tied with your employer. And while this can be a good fit for some, you might want to consider that before moving forward, that it really does kind of join those two aspects together. Additionally, we do recommend avoiding dual relationships and not to choose a friend as an MSW supervisor. The dual relationship could cause issues that could result in a disruptive placement. And again, that could mean a delay in your graduation or additional financial costs. So for example, an argument with a friend could interfere with professional supervision due to a grudge, right? Emotions kind of playing into that. Or there could be role confusion between a therapist versus the professional guidance of a feedback from a supervisor. So we just want to note some of the things that we've seen. Again, the short timelines, sometimes those placements can dissolve, or those relationships, making sure that they can stay professional and you can really get some really solid feedback, right, from those settings as well. Perfect. Now I will hand it off to Professor Adumbi just to share a little bit more about the other aspects of field.
Thank you. Thank you, Talia. Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for taking the lead on this. Welcome, everyone. And my name again is Feiya Adumbi. So licensure and state regulations. Please be aware that social work regulation and statutes be aware of the social work regulations and statutes in the state in which you mean to practice. You can review the licensing requirements and regulations through the State Board of Social Work. And you can review the licensing applications for post-graduation licensure and full licensure levels. For example, in the state of Michigan, once you graduate, you start off with applying for your limited license, MSW license, and then once you get your you sit for your board exams and you accrue your 4,000 hours, then you go on to being a fully licensed MSW or a licensed clinical social worker. In addition, be sure to explore whether your state or the state you're looking to become licensed in has specific requirements for field placements during your MSW program. For instance, note that California doesn't allow students to engage in clinical field placements in for-profit agencies or private practice locations. I'm not moving forward. Thank you. Thank you. So these are a few of the common questions we've gotten over the years from students. Field, for instance, is a class. They want to know if field is a class. The short answer is yes. You will need to register for Social Work 515 or Social Work 691 each semester you're in field. The course will be followed. So Social Work 515 or 691, that course number will be followed by a 3-digit number. And that number signifies the particular field faculty who teaches that field class. So for instance, my number is 381. If any one of you on this call today is registered for either 515 or 691, be sure to look out for 381. So 691-381 or 515-381. Again, students typically ask if they can complete their field placement at their place of employment. Talia just did a fantastic job of taking you through what the requirements are. The answer is yes. As long as your employer is on board with your academic schedule and they meet the requirement for having an MSW or a licensed MSW field instructor available to provide the 1 hour weekly supervision. And then as long as your job allows you to practice the social work competencies in as long as your job allows you to practice in the social work competency areas and the competency areas required for your pathway, absolutely you can. The next question is, can I change field placements? We don't recommend that you switch field placement. The only circumstances or some circumstances which would be tenable for you to switch placement would be where maybe something egregious has happened or some extenuating circumstances that you're facing. Otherwise, changing field placement may result in delaying your graduation schedule and may add some financial burdens to you. So we typically don't recommend switching placement. Next, do I have to find my own placement? No. On-campus and local online students will select from a list of available placements. And once you open up your field app, you will see a list of agencies that are currently affiliated with the School of Social Work. So you do not need to go look for your own placement, except of course, like Talia mentioned, and Dr. Robinson has mentioned, if you live in the UP and some other areas where, agencies are few and far between. So finally, students want to know if they can have their placement at 2 different locations. The answer is no. There is no concurrent placement, and students can only be placed at one agency at a time. Oops. I have one more. All right. Thank you. So, oops. All right. The field office will have multiple opportunities and connections to walk students through the process. So be on the lookout for emails from this office, the Office of Field Education. These will be sent to your UMich email account. You should all have by now your school account. We will not send information to your Gmail or any other personal accounts. In the interim, this is a good time to reflect on your goals and why you're considering a social work career. Expect to be uncomfortable. Field will stretch your abilities as you prepare for a professional career. Be open to new experiences and get ready to venture outside of your comfort zone. Also, let's review your field schedules especially for the online students. Talia took us through this beautiful chart earlier on. Just to recap what Talia has already shared with you, full-time master track students can expect or can anticipate beginning field during their first semester, while full-time advanced standing students will begin placement in their second semester. Part-time students can anticipate starting field 12 to 16 months after starting the program. Please note that your field application cycle may be different than those of our on-campus students. So online students typically have a different cycle than their residential counterparts. You will also be invited to a field webinar or an orientation meeting specifically for online students during your first term in the program. Thank you all, and go blue. Go blue.
Go blue.
You guys will need to all get used to hearing that. I'm telling you, that's our favorite phrase. And so, welcome to the University of Michigan. So I mentioned earlier, my name is Beth. I'm going to provide some really good resources for you right now. So thankful for all the information that's provided. A lot is said in this one evening, so that is why we offer webinars for separate topics. And so you can go back and check out the registration webinar if you want more information about registration. And Field is going to be having their financial aid informational webinar this coming Monday. So Monday, April 7th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can join our great financial aid team, and they're going to provide an overview of what financial aid looks like, talk about some of the different questions that are asked quite often by students, and then they'll take time to also answer some of your questions. If you have not already registered for this webinar, you can do so by scanning the QR code on the screen or going to the Admitted Student Toolkit and registering through that link as well. So again, that's the financial aid webinar this coming Monday, April 7th at 6 p.m. This also will be recorded and posted in the toolkit if you are unable to make it that day. So just a quick reminder about a few things, kind of housekeeping here. If you're coming into the online master's program through the Master Track Certificate program, you are going to be needing to wrap up your classes prior to the start of the semester. So you'll see here that I have listed the classes, the first three classes, the Advocating for Social Justice, the Engaging Social Justice, Diversity, and Oppression, as well as the Essentials of Social Welfare Policy. Those are all going to have their final deadlines. The advocating class, the final deadline to get anything submitted is going to be April 15th. For the engaging course, you need to have your peer review turned in by April 15th so that 2 of your peers can review your work, and you can also review the workings of 2 of your classmates. Note that you need to do that for that 70% in that course. The final grading for that is going to be due April 20th. And those dates are going to be the same for the Essentials of Social Welfare Policy. Then the last three courses are the Essentials of Interpersonal Practice. Again, this course has a peer review, so you're going to want to make sure you get your peer review in by April 13th. And then that final deadline is going to be April 20th. The Research Basics class, final deadline is April 20th again, and very similar with the Essentials of Community Organization. That one having that peer review. So make sure you not only submit your review for others, but that you're reviewing 2 of your classmates. That's how you all get full credit. If you need to talk about anything or check on progress, please feel free to reach out to our team. We're more than happy to help answer those questions. With the little switch that we've made within the last few months, if you're working on the Social Work Essential Certificate, there's also some deadline reminders. If you've worked through the first 3 courses through the Social Work Essential Certificate, the first 3 courses should be completed at this time. The current 3 courses that are in session would be the Essentials of Social Work Policy, the Research Basics, and the Essentials of Community Organization. With this, you'll want to make sure that you're getting all of your work submitted by April 13th. All work on this also needs to be completed at a 70% per assignment and 70% in the course in total. So make sure all of your work is submitted so that we can get everything graded in time and ensure that you're able to start your 590 orientation weekend on May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. All right, some really important resources to be thinking about is how to reach out to our Office of Student Services. Really nice to have everything within our one office. So if you're looking for us, you can reach out to this main email and you can get a hold of our financial aid team. We can talk and answer questions about student organization, student life, health and wellness, the service for students with disabilities. If you're looking to connect for that, you can find those resources on our website or reach out to us and we'd be happy to walk you through that. The first step is going to be working through their accommodation system. So you'll want to fill out the documentation. We have a great partnership with the Services for Students with Disabilities here at the school. We actually have a liaison, Emily, who works directly with our students and our faculty members to make sure that there's a nice smooth transition of understanding the accommodations that have been set. We also are super lucky to have an amazing team in the career and writing services, and they do a plethora of things throughout your time in the program. And they also help you as an alumni, which is really amazing. They host events throughout your time. We have job fairs and we have job panels where you get to hear folks who are currently in the field talking about their experiences. They have licensing workshops, writing assistance. With the job preparation, you can come and get help with your cover letters and your resumes. They help with a practice licensure exam when you get to that point. Just really supported throughout your time here at this school. We also want to talk about your mental health. That is an extremely important aspect of you as a student for us here at the School of Social Work. So we do have an embedded counselor within our school through the counseling and psychological services. So being that you are an online student, there are a few things that can take place. So she's definitely happy to connect with you. If you are in Michigan, she can meet with you virtually or in person. If you're out of state, she's going to meet with you once and connect you with some resources or a therapist within your area. We also have some virtual student support. We're also supported through YouWill, which you can receive for free and have immediate access using your student account. So you'll want to sign up through that through your University of Michigan email. But they give you 4 free sessions anywhere in the country. and you can connect with them right away. Great resource. And then Silver Cloud Interactive Mental Health. This one has gotten some really good reviews from some past students. It really is just a great thing to have. They have an online self-guided, right? So when you need it, you can walk through it. It's interactive health resource that any time of day. So regardless of the time zone and when you need it, it's a really, really nice resource as well. And then there is a 24 hours, 7-day-a-week crisis support through CAPS. And so if that's needed, you can also reach out to that resource. So we've mentioned this several times throughout the orientation because this is such a great place for you to come back and find all of the information that you need in one spot. So if you're looking for any information about upcoming dates or resources, where can I find these videos that have been recorded? You can find all of this in our online admitted student toolkit right under apply and student on the top of our webpage. So you're going to want to go into the School of Social Work webpage and you'll find it right there. And that will be a great link for you. And then the next thing that you're going to have coming up is that financial aid webinar on Monday at 6 p.m. Again, if you haven't registered for that, you can do that through the student toolkit. As always, please feel free to reach out to us at the Office of Student Services and Enrollment Management if you think of a question after today. We have a great feature of our chat with Student Services from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you go on our website, you'll see the chat link right there in the lower right-hand corner. That's actually somebody right in our office. And so you'll be able to get answers to your questions right away. So we're happy to stay and answer some questions if you have anything for us. All right, everybody. Well, please, if you do have a question that you think of, please reach out to any of these resources here on the screen, and we'd be happy to walk you through any of the questions that you have. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to join us. Thank you for the team here. I appreciate you all so much. It's great to have you all coming on board. You are the new team of our Wolverines, and so go blue. Have a great night, everybody.
Go blue, everybody. Good night.